Ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for gathering tonight for this amazing program. Part of the reason it's so amazing is because we have such a wonderful crowd with us. And thank you for coming to not just listen to this program, but to also to support the State of Israel and the important work of the Defense Forces, especially at this time. We ask you, of course, if possible, to put your phones on silent, maybe turn them off altogether if you can, and this way we won't be interrupted. Thank you.
Good evening. We're honored to have this evening the Shayetet 13 Israel Naval Commandos as our program. Tonight's program is part of our Israel 75th initiative. As we all know, Shayetet 13 is instrumental to the success of the Israeli army in its effort to defend Israel at all times, in all circumstances, and especially now as the current crisis unfolds. We all know the difficult week and tragic week that the people of Israel and Jews all over the world have gone through. This is why tonight's program is more timely than ever. The fact that you're all here is a testament that your love and commitment to Israel and to the Jewish people. I would like to take this opportunity to thank Danny and Arlene Fisher for sponsoring this program and bringing it to our community and allowing us to learn about the aspects of Israel's defense more closely, a defense that is never advertised publicly. Thank you.
Along with Danny and Arlene, our co-organizer of tonight's program is sitting here with me on the bima, the Executive Director of American Friends of Israel Navy SEALs, or AFINS, Robbie Brenner. Robbie grew up here on Long Island on the South Shore, although we won't hold that against him. Although, Robbie, I do want to know if anyone checked your passport as you came up to the North Shore for this evening. You're legit? Okay, then we're happy to have you here. Robbie studied journalism and worked as a freelance writer and travel writer before pivoting into nonprofit work. He has led development programs at hospitals, schools, and programs for youth, and for the last 6 years has directed AFINS. Robbie believes deeply in the power of storytelling on behalf of worthy causes. Robbie, we're so honored to have you and Noam here tonight, and we're really looking forward to learning from both of you.
Thank you, Rabbi. I want to start by thanking a number of people without whom tonight wouldn't be possible. Rabbi Rosenthal, Cantor Barnett, Sharon. I want to also join Sharon in thanking board member Arlene and her husband Danny. We also have with us board members Mark Wolf, Jeff Greener, and the vice chair of our board, Doron Kessel. It's really wonderful to be with you all tonight. I think in an occasion like this gives sanctuary a deeper meaning. So our agenda for this evening includes introducing Israel's Navy SEALs. We'll then discuss the unit's activities since October 7th. And we'll have a conversation with Rabbi Rosenthal and our guest of honor, Noam. You know, Sharon mentioned this as part of the Israel at 75, and we began playing this months ago. We began playing this before we had not only a real war, but an information war to fight. As you learn tonight about the men behind the night vision goggles, the masks, the military guns and sights, what you learn about their Jewish values, about the moral calculus with which they operate, about their care for human life, we hope it will help support you as you all join us in fighting the information war in the weeks to come. And with that, we'll start with a video introducing Shayetet 13, Israel's Navy SEALs. Thank you. Sorry, one moment.
The idea of the unit is that we can do any mission, anywhere, in any time allocated.
One of the most elite units in the IDF and also in the world. Tasked with operating far from Israel.
The significance of Shayetet is beyond the IDF and the Navy. It's a major part of Israeli culture. A symbol of bravery and achieving the unbelievable. I was 17 years old when I went to Yibush. You just go out to your limit, you're taking, away from your home and your comfort zone.
You kind of fight for your life for 4 days.
Hiking in the middle of the night, many miles, run and crawl through the sand, swim in freezing cold water.
I'm okay listening.
It was really
Thanks.
the hardest thing I did in life to that point.
You start off every day with a swim, every other day we go for a run. You have a hike once a week.
You're always on the move. You're not allowed to walk. You just spend a lot of time in the water, losing your body heat. So there's sleep deprivation, but there's also heat deprivation. You're always cold. There's a lot of units in the IDF, and training is difficult in many of them, but there's only one unit that has to endure the power of the sea. The marches on the beach are the hardest exercise that you have to do. You start with 10 and you go up to 80 kilometers, which is almost 2 consecutive marathons.
We carry weights to go up to 50% body weight. It's by far the toughest march in the IDF.
It's a team act. Your mission in this hike is to make sure that the whole team finishes.
We need to be a person that can be trusted blindfolded.
Working a team and being a team player is an extremely, extremely important aspect.
We are trusted by the commandant of the IDF. Many times goes up to the Prime Minister to get something done. And no matter how hard it is, counterterrorism, raiding from sea, operating combat vessels, combat parachuting, and intelligence gathering.
Guerrilla warfare, urban warfare, field warfare, diving, and just so much more. In very few places in the military, one person has to know so many different fields. The happiest moment in my entire life.
The Ministry of Defense was there to give us my rank, and it was supposed to be a party. But instead of going to a party, we were told there's an operation, and we all need to get our kit and start moving. And that was the first day of being a warrior, and that's how it started.
The operations that the unit does, and I was also a part of, very important to the security of Israel. Some of the operations are stamped by the Prime Minister.
Our first big major mission was Great Protective Edge.
The unit was the first unit to go into Gaza.
We were young, we just finished our course.
The mission of that operation was to find and destroy the big missiles that Hamas is shooting towards Tel Aviv.
This will be fired all over Israel. It gives you a sense of pride, right, that you are an active part of Israel's safety.
Halfway through the operation, the enemy started shooting at us and we retaliated. We had a few
can be 3 sometimes.
The third week that's pretty long. Every day is pretty long. You start feeling that you're missing someone. I would say even badly.
My daughter was miserable. She missed him. She didn't know what happened, why he wasn't coming home. There's been lots of sleepless nights. My mind always takes me to the worst. I think the main difference between being a wife of a husband and of an officer in special forces compared to non-special forces is that I never know where my husband is. I can't be in touch with him. The wives of other officers and non-special forces can be in touch with their husband. I'm very proud because I know what he's doing is extremely important and he feels lots of pride and we all do.
We went out, we did what we had to do, stopping an immediate threat. And it was successful. You get back to base, then you go out with the guys for a beer, and you see everybody in the bars happy and celebrating. You have no idea where you just came from and what you did. You feel very good knowing that what you did makes it easy for everybody to continue on with their life.
"99% of what this unit does is never revealed to the public. It operates primarily in what's called the war between the wars, doing clandestine operations beyond Israel's borders to keep Israel's enemies in check and make sure their activities don't grow into full-scale war. On October 7th, as we know, at 6:30 in the morning, or earlier, militants, terrorists crossed the Gaza border into Israel and began an atrocious rampage. Within hours, Shayetet 13, Israel Navy SEAL active duty and reservists were there in Be'eri at the Sofa outpost in the south. Within hours, they had rescued 250 hostages, eliminated 60 terrorists, and arrested 26 others, including a senior commander. We know that they continued at this pace for days, at least through Monday. And now they're preparing to play a significant role in the days ahead, including the Gaza invasion. We're closely in touch with the unit. Our foundation is unique in its direct relationship with Shayetet 13 and its commanders so that we can meet the most immediate needs of the warriors and their families. And I can tell you in our most recent update today, Shayetet 13 is active both on the Gaza border, at sea, within Gaza, and on the northern border. As many of you may know, there have been some kind of aggression from the north in recent days, rocket fire, one attempted infiltration by Hezbollah terrorists. And what we're told as recently as this afternoon is that the big question will be, as the IDF makes its ground offensive into Gaza, will Hezbollah really act and open a front in the north? And that's what we need to see. But at this time, special forces, while we hear about the air attack on Gaza, we know that special forces are also going in and out of Gaza to gather intelligence for the ground offensive to come. And it's safe to assume Shayetet 13 is involved in that, and also currently in support by the sea, from the sea. So that'll be the big thing to watch in the days ahead, what happens on the northern border. Now, without further ado, it is my honor and privilege to invite up our guest of honor this evening, an Israel Navy SEAL in reserve and a friend of mine, Noam.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for joining us. I think the thanks would be from me to you for showing up and seeing how you can support us. Thank you all for joining us.
Noam, thank you so much for being here. I was so moved by hearing the descriptions in that video and seeing the work of this amazing group of people. I think we all were. We'd like to know a little bit more about you to start us off tonight. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about your upbringing, your background, and how you came to serve in this special unit.
Sure. So I grew up in Kibbutz Afikim, and similar to the kibbutzes that were, impacted by the horrors last week. But Afikim is up north, not near Gaza. In my kibbutz, almost everyone at least tries to play water polo, both boys and girls, and whoever ends up liking it and being good at it actually stays. So from a very young age, I was playing water polo for the team in the kibbutz. When I was 15 years old, I started playing for the Israel national team as well, and at the time I was the youngest player to ever represent Israel for the European Championship. Not long afterwards, the coach offered me an easy military path so that I can continue to develop as an athlete. I remember looking at other players who have chosen that path. Something about them felt unfulfilled to me. And I also thought about two older guys from the kibbutz I grew up in. They have both served in Shayetet 13, the Israeli Navy SEALs. And in the kibbutz, they were known as very humble people, kind of people who talk less and do more. And I remember I wanted to be like them. So I declined the opportunity for athletic exception and went to Special Forces tryouts. Never told my parents I had the option, but that's what I wanted to do.
That's amazing, and I actually love that you talked about people talking little and doing more. It reminds me of Pirkei Avot, say little and do much, and that's the way that a wise person and a righteous person is. So I love that you brought that up either consciously or unconsciously. What we just saw in the video really brought home, I think, to many of us how incredibly grueling this training and this experience is. What really is going to stick with me is the description of, the unit finishing training and thinking that they were going to celebrate and then going right into a battle. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about how that affected you, how you got through it, how you approached the intensity of all of this.
Yeah, the best tip I have for people who are joining the unit is don't think, just do. But now, jokes aside, it is an unending barrage of runs, hikes, swims, intellectual challenges, and tests of character. Each day concludes with a team debrief, where each team member has to admit how they felt that day, and is sometimes asked to admit the failures of his teammates. Admitting failure brings immediate consequences. Could be a run or a swim at 3 a.m. when your body feels incapable of doing anything more. But dishonesty, not admitting your failure, brings immediate dismissal from the program. So really only the strongest in body and character end up completing the course. I remember sometimes we were commanded to sprint for miles while carrying one of our teammates on a stretcher, and thinking to myself, when in the hell will we ever need this level of training? So yeah, that's it. You just go through it with your team.
So it's almost like there's a little bit of an element of faith that you have to just do it and just be prepared to do what you need to do.
Yeah, and you're not doing it alone. The people who join, the people who start the course thinking they're Superman and that they're, the strongest, they've been the fastest and strongest at high school, and they have what it takes to just finish it, they're usually the ones who drop out first. The people who join and understand that this is a team effort and think about what they can do for the team are usually the people who make it through.
Amazing. So
There's a story that I always think of to illustrate this. And you may remember in the video there was one of the Israel Navy SEALs. You couldn't see his face, but you could hear his Australian accent. And he lived in Australia from the age of 12 to 18 and learned rugby there. And he was one of the fastest runners in the history of Shayetet 13. And he always finished the race first. And his father had been an Israel Navy SEAL. His grandfather had been a resistance fighter against the Nazis during World War II. And he's in the course. He, knows what it takes to get through. He seems to be doing well. And then one cut period, he's called into the commander's office, and the commander says, I need to inform you, you're in danger of being dropped from the program. Comes as a complete shock. He says, I'm sorry, Commander, I don't understand. What's wrong? And the commander says, it's your running. And he says, I'm sorry? I'm the fastest guy in the unit. I always finish the races first. And the commander responds, your times aren't improving like everyone else's.
Yeah.
So it's kind of an incredible combination of great strength and also great humility that it forces you to have. So of course, we're all very concerned about what's going on right now. And I know that Shayetet 13's operations, of course, are covert, and there's really not a lot that we can know about the specifics of what's happening right now. But I wonder if you could maybe illuminate us a little bit by telling us more about when you served, in previous years, and maybe some parallels between what you went through and what might be happening today.
Yeah. Sure. So I served during 2006. In 2006, Israel had the Second Lebanese War. And while most of our operations, as you said, are covert and stay under silence, this one particular one actually made the news, and I believe AFINS translated the news broadcast for that.
Friday, August 4th, 2006. Hezbollah fires long-range missiles at the Hadera area. In response, Israeli Air Force planes destroy the launchers. That same night, Shayetet 13 fighters sailed to Tyre in Lebanon to attack those responsible for the missile launch. Was the complex operation really successful? Was the intelligence received by the fighters enough? To this day, it is still debated. After arriving from the sea, the commandos marched to a house in the northern part of the city, a densely populated area. They moved silently without being detected. Now the fighters are entering the house, preparing to break into the apartment. At this stage, no one senses their presence. Here the break-in occurs as smoke arises from the apartment. The force enters and opens fire at the 3 Hezbollah fighters who are there. 8 naval commandos are injured in the exchange. The force puts the wounded on stretchers, and under fire they carry their friends in the streets of Tyre. On the way, they managed to kill another 10 Hezbollah fighters. IDF commanders decided not to bomb the building from the air. It had many civilians, therefore the Shayetet was sent on the mission.
So I'll add some more details to that. So 3 teams of 10 landed on the beach in Tyre at around 2 a.m. and moved through the woods into position in an urban neighborhood. I led a squad of 3 soldiers. At around 3 a.m., we surrounded the building with 4 Hezbollah terrorists asleep on the 2nd floor inside. They were responsible for firing 10 rockets into Israel over 2 weeks. Rocket attacks overall killed, I think, 44 Israeli civilians during the Second Lebanese War, and 119 IDF soldiers were lost in battle. The SEAL squad that entered the apartment had a close-range gun battle, killing 3 terrorists. Moments before, a 4th terrorist escaped out the window and shot a spray of bullets, hitting 2 of my squad before we took him down. One of my teammates was shot twice in the head, including through the eye. As the neighborhood erupted into a gun battle, 2 of us removed his gear, put him on a stretcher, and started running with him back towards the forest. Now, stretchers are typically carried by at least 6 people, 1 at each corner, which is 4, and another 2 running alongside as relief. We were 2 without relief, carrying the largest man there that night. At that point was when I understood what all my training had been for. We sprinted through gunfire from one wall to another, from point of cover to point of cover. Remember, when you're being fired upon, you hear 3 distinct sounds. There's the explosion of the bullet out the chamber, the split-second whistle as each bullet passes you, and the thud as they hit the wall and ground around you. Your mindset is completely primal, and the only thing you can think about is what you need to do next to survive. I didn't know whether the teammate I was carrying was dead or alive, but I knew that if we didn't make it out before sunrise, Hezbollah would take us captive. So I focused all my attention on reaching the next point of cover and the next one and the next one until we reached the safety of the forest. When we finally reached the forest, I felt as if we've been running through war zone for over an hour. I later learned it had been only 16 minutes. 2 helicopters landed. One took our wounded to a hospital in Haifa, and the other one took the rest of us back in base, where 4 hours later, we learned the teammate I was carrying would survive. Yeah.
I love the way you pointed out how you learned what the point of your training was when you had to do, this thing that took amazing strength, both physically and spiritually and mentally. So you've taught us a little bit about what it's like to be kind of in the heart of a battle when you're on active duty. One of the things that we've been hearing is about all the reservists that have been called up, and I think the number that I heard was 360,000 reservists called up, and those of us here in the New York area have been hearing about all of the young soldiers here that have been in the States for one reason or another and then have been, trying to get back to Israel to serve. So what is it like to be a reservist? How is it similar or different to when you're in active duty?
Yeah, so as a reservist, first of all, you're a civilian and you have something like a normal life of someone who has graduated the Army. However, people who have graduated our unit are usually excused from reserve service because of our extended stay. We usually, nowadays, we serve for 3 years more than the mandatory service in order to be in our unit. And because of that, we don't have to do reserves, but in practice, almost everyone does from our unit. It depends on what exactly you do in reserve, so it could be as few as 15 days annually or as many as 120 days. And most of the time, it's training for days like today. But when things do go down, like you have to move really from 0 to 100. And, people are leaving their college classroom, their family dinners, their corporate office, and you have to drop everything that you do when you just show up. And within a few hours on a Saturday morning from playing with your kids, freeing hostages in the border of Gaza.
This is a news broadcast piece that debuted on Friday.
Within the Israeli Defense Force, it's known as the shift, going from 0 to 100, from civilian life to war in an instant.
The sea can be calm and easy and nice, but within minutes it can get to a storm.
Arad Levertov is a reserve officer in Israel's most elite special forces unit, Shayetet 13. In 2006, he returned to combat for the Lebanon War, leaving behind his pregnant wife and a successful career to join his unit on the front lines.
I knew that my team was focused on the north side of Israel, and within hours, you leave everything, say kiss goodbye, and you go to the war.
Now, a new generation of warriors answer the call, some responding immediately from their homes in Israel.
Within hours, the Shayetet had troops off reserve fighting against terrorists. Within hours, I'm talking about still Saturday midday. Think about it. They left the light, they came to the base, they got the gear, they took a helicopter and went to fight.
Others returning as quickly as possible from abroad.
I jumped on the first plane I could and I came here. It's now mission, as I mentioned, is to fight terror. To fight terror and to get that we can live in security in Israel, but not only in Israel, around the world.
All Israelis must serve in the military when they turn 18, men for 32 months, women for 24. After that, most can be called up to reserve duty until the age of 40, or older in the case of a national emergency. Levertov says after the Hamas attacks, 150% of the number called up responded to serve. Everyone eager to do what they can to serve their country. Caitlin Burke.
One of the things that I think that video sort of called up for me, and I think for many of us, is the way in which so many of us, particularly now, feel keenly that this war is not just an attack on Israel; it's an attack on Jews worldwide, and we're all a part of that struggle, and we all serve in different ways. Some in much more prominent capacities than others. So I'm wondering how you see your service as maybe relating to your Jewish identity and your knowledge of yourself as a part of the Jewish people.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think for me, and now it becomes clearer than ever in my life, like there is the truth that there is no other state for the Jews in Israel, and it's not something that we can take for granted. Just lands and sinks now more than ever. And for me, being able to fight for Israel, keep the people of Israel protected, eliminate any threat we can during my service and reserves is, for me, how my service contributed to the Jewish idea and the Jewish nation.
Beautiful, and we are so grateful for that service. So let's talk tachlis a little bit, nitty-gritty. I'm wondering if Noam and Robbie, you can tell us a little bit more about the work of AFINS.
I think I'll let Robbie do most of the talking here. I will just say from my perspective, we do, in our unit, in order to volunteer for that unit, you do have to serve for a significantly extended period of time. Nowadays, it's 3 years more. So when we graduate and we get released from service, we're at a point where we feel a little bit behind relative to our peers. After 3 years of service, you can imagine friends from home who took the normal route are probably very deep in their college degree and about to graduate, and we just get out there, released from service, and we kind of feel a little bit behind. And at this point of time is where Atalef and AFINS support us the most. And I'll let Robbie speak more to the specifics around that.
Thank you, Noam. 40 years ago, Israel's Navy SEALs, Shayetet 13, established an alumni association. And it was a way to build community among these warriors who had this unique experience, serving more than almost everyone else, doing these intensive combat operations that they can't really talk about with anyone outside of the unit. And over time, if there was an emergency, someone was having a health issue or someone's house burned down, they would kind of pass the hat and raise money to support them. About 20 years ago, there was a really visionary psychologist in the unit named Yotam Dagan, and he started to think about the ability of Israel's Navy SEALs to influence the way that Israel served all of its soldiers. And so this foundation in Israel, the Atalef Foundation, Atalef means bat in Hebrew, it's a symbol of the unit. They create a lot of things that were the first. They created the first transitional workshops to help the SEALs figure out what comes next. They provide the first scholarships from a unit's foundation. They created the first mentorship program specifically for IDF veterans. And what they did really was noticed by the broader military. And as we found that things worked well, we'd share them with other units, other special forces, and they'd create programs of their own. We'd have members of other units in the mentorship program. They'd go back and emulate it with their own program for their own unit. We also began to destigmatize post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, when we facilitated the first conversation between veterans with PTSD and the active duty commanders of within the IDF. We brought Shayetet, Israel Navy SEAL veterans with post-traumatic stress disorder, to the unit, to the base. They met with the commanders and talked about it, talked about their experience and their needs. And for Israel Navy SEALs to raise their hand and say, I can't sleep at night, I am traumatized by what I experienced. Suddenly, the rest of the soldiers in the IDF can look and say, if I admit this, it doesn't make me less tough. It doesn't make me less of a warrior. And it began to destigmatize PTSD, IDF Israel-wide, and allow us to move forward in addressing it. About 8 years ago, our American Friends of Israel Navy SEALs formed as a formal board of directors to begin supporting this work here in the US. But I want to take a quick step back and talk about how that came to be. And it's actually incredibly relevant for us sitting here on the North Shore. Doron Kessel, the vice chair of our board of directors who is here, really started AFIN something more like 15 years ago. He continued to serve, even living and raising his family right here in Great Neck, Roslyn area. He continued to go back twice a year and serve in his reserve duty. Even as he was raising his family, building a career, he would go back and help evaluate future candidates for the unit in that incredibly grueling training process we learned about. And he'd come home and he'd think, these guys in reserve, they're missing socks. They don't have socks supplied by the IDF. We're evaluating these candidates in the middle of the night. We need pens with flashlights on them so we can write and see what we're doing. And he came here and he started to share these needs with the community right here, and started to generate support. And I'm very, very proud and proud of Doron to note that today we're serving 4,000 individuals in Israel every year with the help of 400 Israel Navy SEAL volunteers. And what I've unfortunately in the last week come to refer to as our peacetime programs includes meeting the most pressing needs of the SEALs and their families, the families of the fallen, those who are injured. It includes professional and personal development, such as those programs I described. And it also includes one other category, which is leveraging the SEALs, their social capital, their reputation to benefit others throughout Israeli society. This includes at-risk youth who, might not be as responsive to just anyone, but can't deny an Israel Navy SEAL is pretty cool and has seen some pretty cool things. And so can be mentored by them, can be helped by them. And one of our signature programs is actually called Buddy Line. And it pairs Israel Navy SEAL volunteers with veterans of other IDF units who have severe PTSD. And it's a transformative year-long program where they sail, surf, or scuba dive together. And for some of these individuals who are only leaving their house once a week to come surf or sail with their SEAL buddy, it means the world to them. And that connection, that sense of community. And we do have just a brief video that's in the words of those veterans, not the Israel Navy SEALs, but the veterans that they're helping, talking about their condition and what this program means to them.
I served in Israeli Army for 6 years.
We are going surfing once a week.
You learn how to jive along with your partner. First of all, you meet, you bond with people like you, other war veterans.
The connection with the partner is very important as well.
Because Arthur was a fighter in the army, I found that I can speak with him about the stuff I've been through, and he can understand.
If I feel I need anything, he always there to be helpful. We have a strong connection. Asaf is like my brother.
Fellowship taught me how to deal with things, how to deal with life in a more peaceful, more quiet, more calm ways.
I'm very happy. I'm planning my 3 years old and I'm going to surf it. She's very proud of it, and I'm very proud of it.
חבל זוג revived things in me that I thought they're gone.
It's kept me alive. It's keeping my head over the water.
חבל זוג changed my life.
Hefel Zug is Hebrew for buddy line. Our wartime programs include, right now as we speak, meeting the most immediate needs of the warriors and their families. That includes supplies. It includes providing financial support for the families of those who have already fallen in this war, and for the families of the injured. It includes logistical support for the many reservists that the rabbi noted have been pulled away from home and family. Within the Israel Navy SEAL unit, 500 were called up to duty on Saturday morning, and 1,500 reported. So we're engaged in meeting the most immediate needs in direct partnership with the unit itself. And we also look forward to helping heal the people of Israel as the war ends and we can look to expand programs like Buddy Line and other means of helping people at that time. Our board members here, Jeff Greener, Mark Wolf, Danny and Arlene Fisher, and our Vice Chair, Doron Kessel, do have more information if you'd like to learn more about what we do. And of course, Noam and I are also here following the program. And again, we're grateful to you for being with us. And we hope this is helpful as you go out, as we all, whether we like it or not, we all need to represent what's happening and the Jewish view of it and the Israeli view of it in the days and weeks to come.
Thank you. I just wanted to close off on a personal note. I know for me, and I know for all of us, like, I'm absolutely horrified by last week's events. But at the same time, I've never been more proud to be Israeli and to be Jewish and to see how our people are coming together. Thank you. So much of it is on people like yourselves coming and seeing how they can contribute and how they can be involved and how to get us back on our feet. Thank you all.
Thank you to Rabbi and to Noam. I would like to invite everyone to please rise and to invite Cantor Barnoy to lead us in Atikva.
Kol od baleva v'penima nefesh Yehudi homiya ulfatei mizrach kadima ayin letzion tzofia od lo תקוותנו התקווה בת שנות 2000, להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים. להיות עם חופשי בארצנו, ארץ ציון ירושלים. At this time, thank you all for being here, and we invite you to the lobby for more refreshments. They were there when you walked in, and hopefully there's some left.